How old are the oldest settlements in India? The Indus Valley civilization, the oldest Indian civilization that we know of, dates back to at least 2600 BCE. It spanned northwestern parts of India, Pakistan and Afghanistan. Sometime around 1600 BCE, the Indus Valley civilization faded away. We still don't know why. It was followed by the Vedic civilization, another vast civilization that centered around the Gangetic plains of North India. That lasted until about 500 BCE. But what about South India? Weren't there ancient civilizations in South India too? For a long time, people assumed that civilization in South India was no more than 2300 years old. That's because there was no concrete evidence of any older settlement. No ruins of a city, for example. But many archaeologists rejected that notion. Backing them up was an ancient corpus of Tamil literature called the Sangam Period literature. The poems of Sangam Period, composed roughly between 300 BCE and 300 CE, talk about a grand, ancient Tamil civilization. But where was the physical evidence for that civilization? One recent discovery has brought this discussion back into the limelight. We are in the Vaigai river valley at a place called Keeladi, very close to the city of Madurai. This site is home to one of the most remarkable archaeological excavations in South India in recent times. What is so special about Keeladi? Let's find out.
In 2015, in a little village called Keezhadi on the banks of the river Vaigai near Madurai, archaeologists unearthed a host of ancient artifacts, all dating back to the 6th century BCE. These included potsherds that were inscribed with a script very similar to the graffiti found at the Indus Valley sites. They also found beads made of carnelian, glass, agate and other colourful minerals in unusually large quantities and at single sites. These finds suggest that Keezhadi was perhaps some kind of bead warehouse or market. All this created a flutter among scholars because now there was evidence of a structured and literate Tamil society that was at least as old as the 6th century BCE.
But surely there were South Indian settlements older than that? Ironically, the evidence had been right under the nose of the Archaeological Survey of India for nearly 120 years. Between 1899 and 1904, an archaeologist named Alexander Ray had unearthed many ancient artifacts at a place called Adichanallur, about 200 kilometers south of Keeladi on the banks of Porunai river. Porunai is also called the Thamirabarani river, and it is mentioned in the Tamil Sangam literature as well as the Ramayana and Mahabharata. The excavations at Adichanallur unearthed ancient skeletons, burial urns, gold ornaments and bronze and iron tools.
Unfortunately, in the next 100 years, there was no follow-up to Ray's work. In later years, there was heavy quarrying around Adichanallur and a lot of the artifacts were lost forever. But in 2005, the Archaeological Survey of India returned to the site with better tools for excavation and analysis. Carbon dating of the artifacts shows them to be as old as 905 BCE. Recently, a grain of rice found in a burial urn on the banks of the river Porunai was scientifically dated to 1155 BCE. It is now suggested that this site could be even 3,500 years old. This makes Adichanallur one of the most ancient sites excavated in India.
Perhaps the most telling discoveries at Adichanallur were the skeletons that were dug up from the ancient burial sites. DNA analysis of the skeletons revealed that only 8% of them were of the local Dravidian race. The rest were a mix of races from Europe, Africa and the Far East. The investigators seem to be staring at an ancient, multiracial, international cemetery that was at least 2,500 years old. There was another odd observation. Many of the skulls had a clear depression above the eyebrows, almost like a third eye. What could explain all this? We now know that the depression in the skulls was not an inherited racial feature, but a deformity caused by the Streptococcus bacteria. It causes a swelling called the Pott's puffy tumor. Do you know who's most vulnerable to this condition? Sailors and deep-sea divers.
About 25 kilometers from Adichanallur is a place called Korkai, an ancient port city of the kingdom of the Pandyas. 2000 years ago, it was an international harbour and one of the ancient world's greatest pearl export centres. Korkai pearls were famous worldwide, and people from all over the world sailed in to trade here. Many of them stayed on for extended periods. Sangam period literature even tells us of the Pandya kings employing Greeks, Romans, and other foreigners as mercenary bodyguards. When they died, they must have been buried here. This explains the skulls of people belonging to multiple races.
But the biggest revelation from all the recent excavations along the Vaigai and Porunai rivers is that not only were these settlements really old, but they were also fairly advanced as a society. Take a look at these iron tools found in Adichanallur. They're quite special. You may have heard of Damascus steel swords. They were extremely prized in the first millennium and were known for their toughness and resistance to shattering. They were called Damascus swords because they were made in Damascus. But guess where the steel ingots for these swords came from? India, specifically Adichanallur and later from Sri Lanka.
It was called Wood's steel, and in 500 BCE, it was produced in Kodumanal near Erode. Now, woods is a word which most probably came from wuk, which came from the Tamil word urukku, literally meaning melt. This steel had a very high carbon content, which gave it great strength. Over time, the technique of producing this steel was forgotten. Today, we have no idea how it was made with the tools available back then. For its time, it was technologically very advanced. It meant that metallurgists from these early settlements could build kilns that could generate the high temperatures that such smelting required.
So we now have ample evidence of the existence of an ancient, literate and fairly advanced Tamil civilization that dates back to at least 1155 BCE. But when it comes to human habitation, the available evidence takes us back thousands of years. Close to Keeladi is a village called Agaram, where they found microlithic stone tools dating back to the Neolithic period. That is roughly between 8000 and 3000 BCE. But even Agaram pales in comparison to yet another discovery made in these parts nearly 150 years ago. Did you know that the oldest ever human tool discovered in India was found in a suburb of Chennai? This stone from the Egmore Museum in Chennai may look ordinary, but it is in fact a hand axe from the Stone Age, and it dates back at least 200,000 years.
In 1863, a young geologist of the Geological Survey of India, a man named Robert Bruce Foote, discovered some oddly shaped stones at Pallavaram, a suburb of present-day Chennai. Now, Foote was no ordinary geologist. He was conversant with archaeology and anthropology and was an accomplished landscape artist too. He immediately guessed that these stones were not naturally shaped but chiseled by human hand. They were hand axes crafted by Paleolithic humans at least 200,000 years before present time. Until this discovery, no one had suspected that human evolution in India was this old. 4 months after his first discovery, Robert Foote found more stone tools at Attirampakkam, about 60 kilometers from Chennai. Further research confirmed that this was not just an old settlement, but the oldest human settlement in India and one of the oldest in the world. In fact, the hand axe that Bruce Foote found is the oldest ever human tool discovered in India.
This discovery is so significant that there is even an official period in proto-history named after it. This prehistoric society was officially named Madrasian culture, after the old name of Chennai, Madras. All this suggests that people have been living in these parts for a very long time. So while Keeladi has certainly pushed back the accepted timelines of South Indian settlements, it is neither the first find nor the oldest of such sites in Tamil Nadu. But Keeladi itself still has a lot more to offer. We spoke to Dr. Amarnath of the Archaeological Survey of India, the man who was at the forefront of the Keeladi excavations.
It is not yet opened in full-fledged. It is covered only 10% or 12% of entire area. With that evidence only we are now speaking about that. My point of view, try to expose further and we can get so many evidences, not only at Keeladi, try to see other places in the Vaigai river basin as well as the Kaveri river basin as well as Pallavaram and Thamirabarani. Thamirabarani we are carrying out only for burial sites. Try to find out some habitation sites. So that habitation site relates to Keeladi also. So interconnecting the sites can certainly give the evolution.
The Keeladi excavations have certainly generated much excitement in South India. They have thrown up many new questions and opened up many exciting possibilities. It's almost certain that more digs will bring us more answers and many more questions as well. Did you like that story? We have many more stories to tell. Do like, share and subscribe to our channel, and we will keep you posted on all our upcoming videos.